I want to talk more about Malik Willis, but go ahead, Mike.
Yeah, no, I want to set up the Malik Willis conversation with where these reports have come from. Steve, take tag board full. Jason Lockenforner, who used to work for CBS, now works for a different agency, was on a podcast, and he was basically saying, and this is from Bob Pompey, who then basically transcribed what Jason Lockenforner was saying, but both the Browns and the Dolphins are the two most interested teams in Malik Willis in free agency. The speculation could be a similar deal to what Justin Fields signed. Fields signed a 2-year, $40 million deal with the Jets last season. $30 million of that was guaranteed. The report indicates that Willis made a strong impression on both Jeff Hafley, who's the new head coach in Miami, and Todd Monken, who is the new head coach for the Cleveland Browns. So Malik Willis, fewer pass attempts in his NFL career than Shedeur Sanders. Has fewer starts than Shedeur Sanders.
Was drafted higher, though. But he
was drafted higher, but he was drafted at 86 overall. He was drafted in the dead zone, where starters do not develop.
Right.
They do not come from there.
When Malik Willis had a little bit, he played at Tennessee, it was
a nightmare.
Yeah, why is he a hot commodity based on one game? I don't get it.
It's not based on one game, but he was always a development. I mean, this guy played at Liberty, and was drafted in the back half of the third round. Right. So it didn't go well, and nothing was going well at Tennessee, where he gets to Green Bay. Gets in a better situation at Green Bay, has a little more maturity to him, gets traded, I think, for a 7th round pick. Like Dustin was just talking about. When it happens to these guys, they generally respond one way or another. So if you always looked at him as this developmental kid from Liberty, then 4 years is nothing in terms of, especially because he hasn't played. Right.
Yeah.
I mean, it's staggering to hear someone has played fewer snaps, thrown fewer passes than Shedeur Sanders.
Yeah.
Because Shedeur Sanders played less than half of one season.
That's right.
You know? So that's the upside there. He always was athletic. He always was intriguing. He put up huge numbers at Liberty. He went to the Senior Bowl, and then all of a sudden the thought on that whole quarterback class was crap. And that was the year the Browns were not involved. They were out. They went and traded for Deshaun Watson. Kenny Pickett went in the first round. It was a disaster. Malik Willis went the bottom of the third round.
Let me ask you guys both this, as fellow gamblers here. You got $100,000 on the line. You got to bet on what quarterback is going to be better 5 years from now. Is it Malik Willis or Shedeur Sanders?
$100,000.
$100,000 on the line. Who you laying the money on between those two?
Right, I have to say Malik Willis right now.
Why?
Because he's been in the league for a long time.
Okay,
he's
further along in his progression. Where I think. I mean, there's a reason teams want him right now.
Right, but I'm not asking you who's going to be better this season.
No, I understand.
Who's going to be better in 5 years? But go ahead.
I understand that. I'm just saying, this guy's already at a certain level. Shedeur hasn't even got to this level that Malik's at. So if you're telling me, I'm just blindly betting that Shedeur is going to be great. I mean, I just can't.
Okay, that's reasonable.
Here's the one hesitation. Generally, when guys drop, it's because they're regarded as not being accurate enough, and that's the hardest thing. Shedeur's strength is his pass accuracy. So Malik Willis has clearly worked on it and improved it. But that was the knock on Deshaun Kaiser, mid-second round pick, out of the league quickly. It didn't work out. For many guys, it doesn't work out. Malik Willis has gotten the chance to play. He's worked on it. Now, he's not going to complete 86% of his passes like he did, but he found a system, and he grew, and he has grown as a player, as a person, as a quarterback, all of those things. Because to me, it's an easy answer because Malik Willis is much further along in terms of years.
Gotcha.
But it's not a guarantee because there's not a lot.
And you got to pay him a lot more than you pay Shedeur.
Very small sample.
Let me ask you this question. I don't know if I've asked you this question about Shedeur Sanders. If his name if he was not Deion Sanders' son, and everything else about him was the same, the way he played in college, nothing different except he's not Deion Sanders' son, where do you think he would have been drafted?
Well, Tyler Shuck went 40 and Dillon Gabriel went 94.
Right.
So I think he would have been drafted in the 70, late in the second, early in the third round.
That's
he
what
definitely would have been drafted.
Similar to Malik Willis.
Yeah.
So
very similar.
He obviously, the people that are angry that he should have been the second pick in the draft, they're wrong. But those same people that are angry and said he got sandbagged, they're right to a degree that he got pushed lower because he's Deion Sanders' son.
Yes.
Or because, not necessarily just because of all the hoopla that comes with it.
Yeah, there was just a lot of things.
Right.
But, that's interesting. The Combine is 2 weeks away, and that's when this stuff kind of starts to come out. Right? Unless you're a quarterback that played in an all-star game, you have not done an official interview with NFL teams yet. So you might be squeaky clean and and great and ready to process. But so many of these guys aren't. So until they meet you and have these interactions and know what they want to ask you and put you on the whiteboard and all of these coaching cliches, it really does it starts to happen in 2 weeks and goes through the end of the visits in early April. And that's when they get to know. And Shedeur, at some level, people hate this, but he did fail at that process because he dropped to 144. Last April, the league told us what they thought of Shedeur Sanders because he didn't go in the second round, the third round, the fourth round. That doesn't mean he can't be successful. It doesn't mean the Browns are right or wrong for taking the stab where they did, however they did it, right, and however he goes from here. It's just at that time, based on that window, the league said, we're not interested.
What's interesting is that, we could ultimately be talking about Shedeur Sanders, who probably should have been drafted between 50 and 100, Malik Willis, who was drafted between 50 and 100, and maybe a quarterback in this draft who the Browns might draft between 50 and 100.
50 and 100.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, no, they're probably going to have to go above that, right? For
maybe, right.
But if you're in the Taylor Green, Cole Payton business, the names that are going to be on the screen the next couple of Wednesdays, then you're going to be in the 50 to 100 range.
I know you've mentioned, now I'm forgetting his name, the LSU
Garrett
Nussmeier.
Yeah.
You've mentioned him as somebody to kind of keep an eye on. What do you think of him?
Did one of his games last year.
Yeah.
Early in the season. I thought that he had a lot of hype.
Yeah.
Coming into the year. It was a rough year this year from LSU just because there's so much that happened with the Brian Kelly stuff. They had a down year. He was hurt. I think he's an extremely talented kid. He's got a big arm. He's a big kid. I think because he didn't have the performance that he would have liked this year, he won't be drafted as high, but I think he'll have a chance to be a decent pro. I mean, everybody loves him.
Yeah, let's face it. And we talked about this. Jason was someone who was said a couple of times last year, it's a one quarterback draft. One can't work. Well, it turned out to be, or at least it appears to be, too early to say for sure, a 3 quarterback draft. Because right now, if you're the Giants and the Saints, you feel like you got your starter, I think.
Yeah, temporarily you got your starter.
Yes, now how good are those two guys? We'll see in the long run. Yeah. But they're not looking for quarterbacks in this draft, either of those teams.
Yep.
So I'll be interested to see, because once again, it feels like a 1 quarterback draft. But I'll be interested to see, will there end up being 2 or 3 quarterbacks that end up being starters? Odds are there will be.
There's another layer. I think the hearing is tomorrow. Trinidad Chambliss from Ole Miss. We don't know if he's in the draft or not.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if we're going to get clarity tomorrow on that, but that's an interesting one. He's a second-day pick. He's a smaller guy, but he was electric.
Yeah.
And he came out of nowhere from Ferris State. Right.
Yeah.
And
this is insane. Now guys are fighting Maurice Clarett fought to go to the pros. Now this guy's fighting to stay in college.
Yeah. It is.
Well, there's money to be made in college.
Yeah.
There's a lot of money.
And he also would like to make another name for himself. He can make a lot of money going back.
And raise his draft stock.
And it shows how everybody's situation is.
Yeah.
Right? Nussmeier did not have to come out last year. He thought that they could legitimately win the national championship.
Yeah.
He went back. It was a nightmare. He had different injuries. He didn't play well. The line wasn't great. His coach got fired. It was all around awful. Right?
Where do you think he would have been drafted? Zach,
Dane Brugler believes that he would have been drafted before Jackson Dart last year.
Okay.
Now, obviously, we get hindsight when we have this discussion, and that sounds a little absurd. And Nussmeier's big enough. There's nothing special about him. Dart is bigger, stronger, faster.
Yeah.
And obviously, people know Dart can run. Now, can he protect himself? We're gonna find out there. So Garrett Nussmeier doesn't wow you with that stuff, but son of a coach, accurate enough, raised to do this, did it at a high level at LSU for a while. He was there long enough. He got beat out by Jaden Daniels.
Yeah.
Is Kirk Cousins a comp for him?
It's a very good comp.
Sure.
Okay.
Yes.
There you go.
Yes.
I mean,
he might have a better arm, right, Dustin?
Right.
Would you say that?
I think he's more talented than Kirk
and
Cousins.
I would say it. And you know me, I've always been obsessed. You got to have a great quarterback. Right. I think Jay is. I think lost his mind a little bit where
They're somewhere in the middle.
He thinks you could just win with not any quarterback, but defense and running game more important. But I do think it's swung a little where I think you don't have to have an elite quarterback to win. Now, if your quarterback's good, not elite, you got to have a great team around them, certainly.
Sure.
But if your ceiling is Kirk Cousins, I think Kirk Cousins, who obviously has struggled in the postseason, but his level of player, I think, is right on that borderline of, can I win a Super Bowl with this guy? I think if the team's amazing around him, you got a shot, right? But
I think if Nussmeier goes to the combine and his medical checks are good, he did have multiple injuries, so we'll see. He's definitely going in the top 45, and I'm not ruling out the top 25 because we've seen him do it.
And you've seen the desperate, and you see the Jets have nothing, the Dolphins have nothing.
That's right.
The Steelers have nothing long term.
So the Steelers are at 21.
Yeah.
The Browns are at 24.
Right. You mentioned
the Rams are in the back of the round, and the Jets are at the top of the second round.
Right.
So for these guys.
And the Browns.
If you even love them a little bit, now the positioning begins.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Because if the Browns are waiting at 24 and somebody thinks that they're going to take Nussmeier or Simpson or Chambliss, somebody's coming in front of them. Or if what are the Steelers going to do?
Yeah.
You know? So that's what it gets interesting, and that really starts to heat up these days.
Do you think the Browns, you ultimately think they will or will not take a quarterback at 24 if you had to bet?
I would say not at 24, but I don't know. But I feel really my two strongest feels right now. And again, we have they do some strange things there.
You think?
Okay. I think they're prepared to make an investment in a veteran wide receiver.
Yeah.
A strong investment. Now, that doesn't mean like a top-level player, just a strong investment.
Like a Romeo Doubs type of player?
Yes.
Okay.
And I think they're going to draft a quarterback. Now, I don't know if that's at 24 or 40 or somewhere in the middle after a move or somewhere after that. But those are the two things I feel strongest about here as we really start to turn the page into the speculation part, and we're less than 4 weeks from free agency. So it's like the Super Bowl was 3 days ago, but it gets here quickly.
Yeah. It would be. I mean, you could let's say you drafted at 6. You drafted Tyson or Tate, and then you signed Romeo Doubs, who's a slot receiver. I mean, again, I don't know how good Tate and Tyson are going to be, but you could transform your wide receiving room pretty quickly.
If you take a receiver at 6, you're saying this is our number one of the future.
100%.
Maybe not now. We got a lot to work out on the offense, but like this is a guy that's going to be not Jamar Chase maybe, but like that kind of guy.
Yeah.
It's going to have 90 catches. It's going to have 10 touchdowns. It's going to get the ball for us in the biggest situation.
Tate will be gone by then, won't he?
I don't know. It's going to be right around
at 6.
I mean, he had such a great year.
I've seen everything. I've seen top 5. Roughly.
I hate the idea of them taking an offensive lineman at 6, especially because this offensive lineman, Mayuga, whatever the hell his name is, like you don't even know if he's a guard or a tackle. I don't like taking
it's
a guy.
Hard to take a right tackle at 6.
Or a guard.
Yeah.
I know
it's hard for guys like us to sit here and tell you who they should the best offensive tackles.
You're right.
First off, we don't know.
Right. I agree.
And that's a tough position to evaluate, And
it
so we could be like, this guy was a great player in college, but I don't know.
Yeah.
We don't know what the Browns need.
I know that Tyvis is obsessed with Mekhi Lemon right now.
Yeah.
He loves that guy.
If they could get Mekhi Lemon at 24, I'd sprint the card.
Now that you wouldn't sign, but the free agency's before, but he's a slot guy.
No, right. Things are going to start to fall in place.
Sure.
Right? Whoever gets Malik Willis and or Mac Jones, they're in the receiver business because they're saying away we're trying to be good. And maybe the Browns are trying to do that. I think the Browns are trying to tell us without telling us that they're mostly about 27. And Barry did sort of say that. But they've also kind of said we have this defense, and that's right.
Mestamaker.
Right. You're not buying the lock and for that the Browns are one of the teams hot for Willis.
I'm not dismissing it.
Yeah.
And I think it's the Browns' duty to discuss all of these things.
Sure.
First of all, he seems like a near lock to Miami if the Packers guys
makes
like
sense.
him. And I just don't think I think other teams are better positioned to do that and make that kind of move right now. I think the Browns are committed to Watson's money for better or worse, and are tepidly committed to Sanders, and that's fine. Because he can start the season and go.
Yeah.
And you're done. If you take Malik Willis, you're done with the Shedeur Sanders experiment. You can't keep him around.
No.
Right?
Yes.
So,
because you're saying, well, we like this other mid-round pick better. Because you're going to pay him decent money.
I mean, you just asked the question about where would Shedeur been drafted had he not been a Sanders.
Right.
Well, we said about where Malik Willis was.
Right.
So then all of a sudden you to your point, you'd be bringing Malik in saying, okay.
Right. You're saying you believe in him more.
You believe in this guy who's about the same skill set as you, more.
And it's not like Malik Willis is more proven. Right. So you're saying I believe in his upside more than I believe in your upside.
And the price tag, if it is in the report.
Right, especially with the price tag.
$30 million guaranteed over 2 years is absurd. Look how the Justin Fields, me and Zach were talking on the way down here. Right. The Jets are likely to cut Justin Fields.
Yeah, he was terrible.
This offseason after 1 year there, that's a lot of money to invest in a guy with not a
Justin
lot of
Fields is going to cost them $20 or $30 million to not be on their team
this
year. And they're not winning this year anyway.
Yeah.
But that's the exact kind of contract that Willis is going to sign, and if it doesn't work out, then you just have more dead weight. Going forward. That's why you invested in
it doesn't really make a ton of sense for the Browns. It doesn't make sense for Willis. If you're Willis, you may only get one chance to start.
I agree.
right? Like, I want to go where I got a little better offense. I mean, I know most of the teams he's got to choose from are not in great shape, but
it's not just the Packers defensive coordinator being Miami's head coach. It's a guy that worked his entire career in the Packers organization and would be involved in trade planning. They traded for him, 18 months ago. Now runs the Dolphins.
Yeah.
So if Malik Willis is worth it, they're going to think it. They're going to make that commitment. They know.
Yeah.
That's going to say it all. If they don't want to do that, that's going to say it all.
That's true.
Fair
and
enough.
They got Jalen Waddle, who's a really good receiver.
Yes.
You got Devin A-Chain, one of the best backs in the league. So, anyway, it does make a lot of sense.